Hi, I'm Don Debelak. You've reached the third video in the video series, Creating an Introduction Plan, and this video is about licensing as a path to market, what you want to do if you want to take your product out and license it. Now, before I start, I just want to say again that we have a lot of inventor stories about licensing on the website. If you go to the first page of our website and just put in licensing in the search box, you'll have stories coming up from inventors who've licensed their product. They all kind of take a different twist in how they get it done. So reading those stories will also give you a little bit of a background on what people do to get their product licensed. Now, when it comes to licensing, what inventors really are very positive about licensing. It's like a dream come true. They can turn their invention over to a big company. They can net 3 to 5% of sales plus an upfront payment. They could get a license without a patent or a prototype, and they can start profiting from their idea in 6 months or less. What inventor wouldn't like that? But in fact, that's not really what happens, and that's not what inventors face. If you're going to get a license, patents are needed as well as prototypes. You just can't take a drawing or a concept into a company and expect to get a license. And it's also difficult to get that license without some sales success or without a lot of proof in the marketplace that your idea will really sell. Networking is also important, though this is a little bit different. You're going to be taking a look at your customers, your target customers who you really think are good prospects, and then you're going to find people in sales or marketing for those companies that'll help take and champion your idea. It's not uncommon for an inventor to take 2 or 3 years to start getting profit from a license. First, they have their patent and prototype, then they have to get their networking done, they have to do a prototype, they have to develop a little bit of sales history, and then once the company actually signs a license, it takes the company a year to get the product really out in the market in force and really start generating revenues where there's a profit. So sometimes it takes less, sometimes it's 6 months, and it really depends on how much you've done with your idea. The less you've done with your idea, the longer it's going to take the manufacturer to get it out. But if you've finalized the prototype and done all of that work, sometimes you can get your profitability down to a year and sometimes even less. What is it that makes licensing difficult? Well, one is the manufacturer, the licensor is taking on all the risk. When you had private label, if the private label didn't work, your private label partner would just, stop selling the product. And he'd take some losses, but they wouldn't be catastrophic. Your manufacturer who paid for tooling and your manufacturer who put up inventory and built product for you, and your investors, now they would be out, but not the manufacturer or licensor. So the licensor takes on a lot more risk than a private label partner. The margins are lower. Now, typically a manufacturer has a final margin after production, administrative costs, sales costs, and profits that works, maybe of 10, maybe if they're lucky, 15%. So if that manufacturer is paying you a 5% license, he's really giving away about 1/3 of his profit. Now, if your product has a really high margin, so the licensor, this overcomes that objection from the licensor, or if it helps them sell their entire line, again, that's something that helps the licensor overcome the fact the margins look lower. Engineering departments are almost always resistant to licenses. They want to develop their own products. Typically, the engineering department has 5 or 6 products that they're working on, and if the company takes on your product, that's going to delay the introduction of their products. The production plant also is sometimes reluctant to take on a product because the margins are lower. If you have a very high margin product where the selling price is well over the manufacturing cost, then the production department usually will come over to your sides. This next issue is one that inventors don't like to hear about, but it's true, and it's the way most manufacturers take a look at it, and that is that inventors can be darn hard to deal with. They can change their minds. They can come and keep saying, "Oh, let's do this or let's do that." They think every week it's okay to come in with a new idea about some kind of modification to deal with, and really licensors can't deal with that. They got to set a course, decide on a course, and follow it, and they don't change it. Every time you change it, you're delaying the product 3 to 4 months. Inventors are also very resistant to changes that sometimes the licensor wants to make either make the product more commercial or to make it more reliable or less costly. The licensor is going to look at your product and he's going to say, well, this feature is costing X amount of dollars. Does it provide that much benefit in the market? And is it going to be reliable? And is it going to be a functional feature that's really worthwhile? Sometimes they don't think a feature is, but the inventors have a very hard time letting go of features. And the other problem with inventors, as far from the licensor's point of view, is that the inventor might have some follow-on products, but the manufacturer might have follow-on products. The manufacturing sales department be out there selling the product, and they say, hey, we should add this product. This would really complement this and really make everything work better. Well, the manufacturer and licensor might want to just go and do that on their own, while the inventor is going to want that to be part of his royalty package. Steps to success. Now, this is really sort of a table of contents of the slides that are going to be coming up that'll really show you how to succeed. But just to go over kind of briefly, it's very similar in a way to private label. You have to determine who your target prospects are, although your target prospects are going to be a little different than private label. You're going to want to talk to industry insiders to help you target those customers. There's a lot of scuttlebutt in the industry that can really help you decide what companies are best. Your best bet for licensing is a company who's kind of going down, really needs a hot new product to really kind of boost their overall momentum in the marketplace. You need to become patent pending, and you need to create a looks like, acts like prototype. I know the inventors don't like to hear it because both of those are an expense, but basically companies really aren't going to move ahead without that. You want to show consumer and market insider feedback. You've got to do some research. You've got to meet some people in the market. You've got to get people telling you that this is a really good idea that they'd really like to see on the marketplace. Of course, proof of probable sales success. Your best proof is that you've actually sold the product and you've actually got some market penetration. But in lieu of that, if you have commitments or at least supportive statements for people in the distribution channel or from other small invention companies, this would be a biggest aid on your side. You've got, once again, it's hard to go in the company. You, the lowly inventor, don't really know the ropes very well trying to get that company to buy. You want to instead get a salesperson or a marketing person to really help you. As we talked about under private label, those salespeople and marketing people have a lot to gain by presenting your product, and you want them on your side so they're pushing you all the way through the final licensing agreement. Of course, you want to prepare a presentation. You really should have this presentation for the salesperson or marketing person to get them enrolled in the project and really seeing that it's a good idea. But then you're going to need to make this same presentation when you go before top management. Just like private labels, we always like to do an MOU first. It's a commitment without being a firm commitment, and it shows the company is really interested in it, really pushes people to advance the product, and then you want to move forward to a final agreement. Determining your target prospects. Who are the companies that you want to really go after? Again, just like private label and licensing, you don't want to shop your product around to everyone at once. People don't like that. They want to think that they're the exclusive person you're presenting it to, so you want to be careful in who you present it to first and try to maximize your chances. First thing you want to look at as a license is market leaders rarely license products. This is because they fear cannibalizing their own sales. What this means is, like, if I'm a company and I have a product somewhat similar to yours but not as good, and I have 40% market share, if I take your product on, all the sales I get for your product are going to be at the expense of my other product. So maybe my overall market share might go from 40 to 45%, but the products I'm selling from you, I'm going to have a lower margin than my own products. So the licensors are not going to find that attractive. So market leaders rarely license unless you can give them a product that's very complementary to their whole line and can help their whole line in sales. Companies with lower market shares are more likely to license because they have the most to gain. So if on the other hand I'm going to like the fourth leading market share company and they have 7% and my product can take their sales from 7 to 15%, well, all of a sudden they're not looking at me cannibalizing their line. They're looking at me significantly expanding their market share. So those companies are a lot more interested in that. Companies with stagnant product lines are more likely to license. This is why I said it's really good to have some people in the industry and the scuttlebutt because they can tell you, well, this company used to have 12% market share, but they're kind of going down 8%. They haven't come out with anything innovative for a while and they're struggling to regain their momentum. Boom. That's the kind of company you want to license to if they have the money and the resources to really push your product. They're looking for a product. They need a new product. And if you come up with an exciting new product, they're going to be receptive. Now, you also want to have those insiders kind of give you some feedback if other companies in the industry have licensed. You'll find most of the licensing activity is not in the top tier companies, but in the middle tier companies. And the industry insiders will know who's introduced all their own products and who's licensed it. You can also get a license from a distributor and not just manufacturers, but distributors usually prefer to go the private label route. Now talk to insiders. This insider that we're talking about is not an industry insider, but a company insider. Insiders are sales, marketing, or management people who are connected to the company. In an upcoming video is on networking. I think it's in either the next video or the one after that. Check on that video, see how to meet these insiders, see how to approach them, and see how to convince them to be on your side. As I mentioned a little earlier, insiders have a lot to gain and little to lose by helping you. They look good no matter what the company does, as long as your product is a viable product with market potential. Without inside help pushing your product from the inside, it's difficult to get enough push to get a fair evaluation. And insiders typically only require you to appreciate what they are doing. You're not going to have to pay the money. They're going to get all their reward by looking good within their own company. Apply for a patent and create a prototype. I know inventors don't like to hear this. They want to go out and just take their product and start making money and really not do an investment, but it just doesn't work that way. First of all, you don't actually own your product design unless you have a patent. I mean, someone can take your very same design and go out and introduce it. The only thing that protects you and stops people is a patent. Provisional patents are enough to get started, but they expire in a year, and there's no guarantee a patent will be granted. So companies are a little leery of provisional patents, but if they really like the patent product, they'll probably go with that, and they might even help you pay for the patent when you actually go for a permanent patent. A lot of times companies like to use their own patent attorneys here because they feel that they're going to be better at locking the product up than you would if you got a patent on your own. You've got to expect the prospective company to thoroughly review the patent. They're not going to sign a license without a review by their patent attorney. So don't try to say you've got a patent or say it's a provisional patent or try to hide the facts from them because they're going to find out reality soon enough. Companies that license almost always also need a good working model, a looks like, act like model, which means it looks like the final product, it acts like the final product. Now, don't show a product with problems. When you go to these companies, there's always going to be people who are kind of naysayers or negative. You're always going to face at least 10% of the people who are against you. And you don't want to leave them openings about how to criticize your idea by having a prototype that has flaws. Make sure your prototype is in good shape, it works well, it's durable, and it doesn't have any flaws. Again, don't ever say to a company, well, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like this is going to be like this. Nobody but you sees the end result. Everybody else just sees what you're showing them. Sorry about that. So we want the marketing people on your side. As I talked about, you went and got people, a salesperson or marketing person to help you. The reason you need that inside help is that engineering people will typically resist you. What they're going to say is that, oh, this product is got this flaw or that flaw. It's going to be too expensive. The margin's going to be too low. But what they're really saying is that they want the company to introduce their own product and not your product. And so, just usually the marketing people have more power than engineering. They can override that. But just expect some resistance, and you need that support of marketing to start with before you start getting in front of engineering and top management. Now, a company really have your product look different, be different, stand out, and really have your product be something that people can see at least a 30% advantage. You know, the company is giving up a lot of margin to you, and if you're only making a 10% difference, they're going to say, well, gee, we can come up with a product that's 10% better too. They're looking at you to make a significant jump in their market share and to have features nobody has and to have a look and performance nobody has. So make sure when you're getting the people on your side and you're making your presentation, you're really on top of the fact you need a 30% minimum advantage, and sometimes 50% is better. Prepare a presentation that you're going to show first to your salesman, then to the marketing people, then you're going to show it to the engineering and top management. Never make your presentation only to engineering. You're just going to get chopped to smithereens. Always make sure that by the time you show it to engineering, you also have top management there and you have your marketing and sales support pushing your product. Again, as I've said many times, short presentations are best. The longer you go, the less your odds. Just keep it with the highlights and really why your product is so much better. Talk about why the product is needed. Again, if you can tie into exactly what the company says is the reason the product is needed, you're going to be way ahead if you come up with some other reasons that really are counter to what they think. You want to show about all your focus groups, all your other market tests, what your sales success has been to date if you have any. You want to talk about your prototypes and show them, but make sure those prototypes are almost commercial ready. If they're not almost commercial ready, you're making a really big chance going to make a presentation. I think it pays to show a really high tech or fancy, really eye catching product package. It's usually not that expensive to make the product package or the prototype product package if you work with some of these freelance sites, and the benefit it gives you is pretty high. Two other items. Now these you're not really going to have a good handle on, but you're, these last two are really to avoid nitpicking. One is you want to minimize the amount of introduction costs that your product will have, and of course they may actually be higher, but people are going to be cutting you to know it's going to cost too much. So try to work with SCORE or some of your industry insiders, or maybe a manufacturer that you've gotten acquainted with, and talk about what is the capex that's going to really cost to introduce a product. Make those costs look small. Find out the cheapest way to do it so you can say you'll be able to introduce my product for like a $150,000 investment. You'll have the engineers and plant people throwing numbers out like $1 million, so you kind of have to minimize this by coming up with your own analysis. Same thing for manufacturing cost estimates. The engineers, the manufacturers, one of their really hard targets, or one of their approaches they take to try to minimize, is when they'll say, oh, the cost is going to be too high. We're not going to be able to sell it for like 5 times our manufacturing cost. So there again, you want to go in and have your own cost estimate and margin analysis. You want to show it to top management so that your product is not just fodder for engineering and manufacturing people to attack. Often you don't need these things, sometimes you do, but you always have to be prepared that not everybody is going to be on your side. Creating an MOU, again, The internet is just full of examples of MOUs for licensing. Take a look at them, and then also take a look at the invention stories, and you can see kind of if they did an MOU or did a licensing. The MOU again is non-binding, but it does have confidentiality clauses. It lays out what you and what the licensor are going to be doing over this evaluation period. It lists actions you're going to take, and it lowers the risk of the manufacturer just dropping out and stopping working on the idea. Once they commit to an MOU and they've made a commitment on those, they'll usually carry forth and do what they say they would. But if you don't have an MOU, you'll find that sometimes they just kind of put it off and put it off and put it off. Once you have the MOU, though, you'll have a target introduction date, and so you have something that you can kind of force the people to work towards. Finally, you need to finalize the agreement. Again, the internet is full of licensing agreements for products. Take a look at those, get an understanding. Do that before you get a lawyer. I mean, in the end, you need a lawyer, but I think you need to understand what kind of agreements are out there, how they work, and what you're looking to do. So, some of the things you want in your agreement, you want it to be as long as time as possible. The best ones are the long as your patent is valid. 3 to 5% royalties are common, but they can be higher or lower. $10,000 is a normal upfront payment, but again, they can be higher than lower. You want to have the royalties on all product derivatives. You want that in the contract and clear. You want to outline the support you will offer. What you're going to run into is the engineers will not want you to be involved, and you want to be involved. And so if your licensing agreement calls for you to spend like 3 days a month at the licensor, attend meetings on product design, help with the final designs, put as much of that as you can, or you'll find the engineers will kind of leave you out, and they might not take advantage of all your expertise that could really help the product do better. Again, licensing agreements are all over the internet. Try to find a helpful business lawyer. Use SCORE, use the SBDC, use anyone you can to help you. Thanks a lot.